These colour combinations would ensure the clock face could be seen clearly from more than 8 kilometres away. Each LED pixel placed on the clock face was installed 105mm from the next one. That's so that from a distance it would appear as a single green surface. Staggeringly, more than 2 million LEDs were used to illuminate the tower in total.
These LED lights were also specifically developed for the task. It took about a year, I think, till we finally were happy with the outcome. The problem is that if these LEDs get very hot, their lifetime is reduced dramatically. We have a hot climate there. The problem was to find the right casting as a cooling body for the individual LEDs.
Now, while this painstaking attention to detail certainly added to the $16 billion cost, for the Saudi royal family, spending on the finer details has been worth it for a long time. A Saudi prince once purchased Salvator Mundi, the most expensive painting in the world, at $450 million. These super wealthy figures see this fine art as an investment, one that's even outpaced more traditional assets like stocks or real estate. But even if you don't have a royal checkbook, then don't worry, because you can still unlock the high-powered world of art investing yourself thanks to today's video sponsor, Masterworks. Over 900,000 members have signed on to the art investing platform because no art expertise is required. Previous investable offerings from legends like Picasso, Kors and Banksy have sometimes sold out within minutes. Since so many of the B1M subscribers have signed on so far, you can still skip the waitlist and start investing today with the QR code on screen, the link in the description, or by visiting masterworks.art/the B1M. Past performance is not indicative of future returns, and investing does involve risk. You can see important Regulation A disclosures at masterworks.com/CD. Now, let's get back to that massive clock tower. In keeping with Islamic traditions, the facade of the tower is covered in 98 million mosaic tiles, each measuring 20 by 20 millimeters. The glass tiles came in 13 different colours, 1/3 of which contained 24-karat gold leaf. The order for the tiles was so immense that the Venetian company producing them had to invent a new way to automate the process just to get it done.
This is a very good company that was chosen for their quality. But at that time, particularly the gold tiles were manufacturing an amount of 15 to 20 square meters a month. And we were in necessity of 250, 300 square meters a month to catch up with the construction. We developed together with them a robotic system. So also there from manual operation to a mixed technology of robotics and manual.
The tiles themselves had to be rigorously tested to ensure they could withstand the extreme weather at the top of this building.
Everything has been tested in lab or also weather, fire tests, and all the possible tests were made.
Now, much of the tower was prefabricated in Dubai, a city that kinda knows a thing or two about megastructures. The 98 million tiles were sent here and put on the facade piece by piece, all by hand. More than 100 people worked on the mosaics, and only the best, most flawless tiles were selected. These finished pieces of the facade were then broken down and taken across the desert in trucks in a 3-day journey to Mecca, where they were reassembled. The clock face itself was also built in Dubai first, so they could see what it would look like firsthand. This was done partly to test the structure, but also because many of the architects and engineers working on the building couldn't travel to Mecca themselves to see it finished. This approach allowed them to make any necessary adjustments before the clock face was finally installed.
We had to erect a quarter of the clock, so we had to rebuild a main structure, the substructure of the clock, and the clock for a quarter of it.
It too was then dismantled and sent to Mecca. The very top of the structure was also prefabricated in Dubai. This crescent moon structure would reach for the sky and house the highest prayer room in the world.
The crescent of this half moon, that is a typical element that put on top of the minaret.
The crescent itself is the biggest carbon fiber structure ever built.
It contains 3 floors with the prayer room, a meeting room, and an office.
There is an elevator climbing all the way up to the top of the spire. From there, there are, I remember, something like 15, 18 meters of a spiral staircase leading you to the crescent.
Finally, the time came to lift the prayer room to its final place at the top of the tower. It had been severed into several parts so it could be trucked to Mecca, but there was just one problem. Where the prayer room had to be lifted up to was so high, the crane couldn't reach it.
There's a spiral stair that goes through the spine of the crescent, or let's say that the neck of the crescent. And a friend of mine and myself, we always went up that spiral stair to take a break, went there to smoke a cigarette. It was beautiful. You sit, there's nothing around you. And we knew, okay, from the program that the crescent will come in within the next 2 weeks. And then we looked on the tower and said, that's a bit weird. That the tower crane at the time was only then reaching with the tip kind of to that platform.
With very limited time left, they had to raise the crane to its absolute limit.
The tower crane was then at a height of 200 plus meters, and then quite a heavy load on it. The one segment of this crescent was 7 to 8 tons. The capacity of the crane then got to its limit because the height was, everything was at its limit. The height was just enough. The capacity, the weight of the crescent was exactly on the limit of the crane.
Then came the wind. 600 meters above the ground, riggers strapped into harnesses, some on the structure, others on the tower, bracing themselves against the forces. The crescent soon began spinning out of control.
I think there were 2 or 3 guys that really got sick because it was rotating. It was really one of the most stressful days on site.
The team on the viewing platform had to use ropes to steady the structure and bring it into place.
The poor crane driver, I think he was going nuts because on the walkie-talkie and people from down all yelling at him. Oh, be careful here, watch out this, watch this, and it's turning and it's doing this and whatever. Took quite a while, took longer than anticipated, but they managed it.
With the prayer room in place, the tower was officially topped out. To this day, it's still the highest occupiable space on any man-made structure. The Burj Khalifa's highest occupied floor is at 585 meters, while Shanghai Towers is at 583. Both pale in comparison to this prayer room sitting 600 meters above Mecca.
Then we had the opening ceremony where the king actually came to Mecca and then pressed the red button and all the lights went on. And that was a great moment. That was really, really good. It's like 3 years of hardcore pressure and stress, and it all came to a success. But it was a great moment. One of the best moments in my life, that's for sure.
The clock tower now stands as a symbol of Mecca in the 21st century. A place steeped in history with an important role in the lives of millions of people today. There isn't another building like it, and there probably never will be.
I think it's totally different from any other, even the most spectacular buildings of extreme height. They will never compete with this shape and this function. It's the only tower that gives its own time signal for Muslims worldwide. Anything which is of a unification purpose in these days is very important, and that may be the real value of this structure.
Despite shattering so many records, this building is still remarkably unknown in the Western world.
At the beginning, I was a little bit disappointed or sad. I managed to understand that maybe it's even good for the building. In the contemporary architecture, the building is not even finished and is already on the magazine or on internet. People talk for 1 month and then it's forgotten. So I assume this building is slowly metabolized by the city. It's becoming an icon and slowly will become in the time an essential building.
I think the building in itself will remain an icon for Saudi, and it will remain an icon for the whole Islamic world. Because of course, many Muslims have worked on the building. There were at times up to 15,000, 17,000 construction workers on that complex. All of them Muslim and all from different countries all over the world. So there is pretty much every country has kind of a story, a connection to that building, which you do not have in typical buildings.
The biggest clock for me personally has not that importance. This big clock has offered this opportunity to explore materials, technology, to have new space behind. So it's a completely different building from a stereotype skyscraper, you know.
Despite working on the project for several years, many of the lead architects have never seen the building in real life.
Oh, no, I couldn't. And there is one thing the architect can do, they can imagine quite well. So, of course, to stand there, look at, walk around would be fantastic. But let's say in my head is quite well represented and imagined.
I can say that I didn't convert. The closest I ever got physically was 20 kilometers, which is already inside the confines of Mecca. My driver didn't realize that he had a non-believer on board. He stopped in the middle of the motorway and made a U-turn and drove me back out again. This building is so gigantic, you can see it from 50 miles away or even further.
We're now seeing so many new projects being announced in Saudi Arabia, from giant linear cities to desert arenas, all with fresh skepticism as to whether they can be achieved. And while that of course remains to be seen, the Makkah Royal Clock Tower is in many ways the first Saudi mega project. Whatever comes next, it remains a towering accomplishment in its own right, and will in all likelihood stand the test of time.